Hey, all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and I'm here with Jonathan.
Well, hello.
And we have a ton to discuss today. We got James Gunn and his Star Wars-esque plans for DCU, updates on the Harry Potter series. We've got Riot Games expanding into the card genre, plus reviews for Skeleton Crew, and Creature Commandos, and Marvel Rivals, and so many cool things. But let's begin with our question of the week. Jonathan, which pop culture character do you want to see have their own reality TV show?
Oh, see, yeah, that was kind of tricky. At first, I couldn't think of pop culture characters or reality TV shows that I like or something like that. But right after a little while, because I was trying to find a character first and then pick a show that would match them.
Yeah,
it worked better going backwards. Pick a good show that you like, a reality show, and then like who would be fun to have on that. And then it got snowballing. So of course, I like Survivor. I wanted to find a way to use Survivor. But who would be a great character to host their own version of Survivor? And I was like, oh, the character, because not the actor specifically, but would be Tom Hanks' character in Castaway, Chuck Nolan. Would be amazing. And then I was thinking, like, it would be so funny because he's got these people surviving on an island and whatnot. When they do the private interviews with the producer would have to be Wilson. So they're sitting there talking to Wilson by themselves. Would be their, camera time. Yeah. But a couple other options would be Captain Kirk's dating show or Homer Simpson's British Bake Off, because of course he's going to be wanting to sample all the creations.
Or something like,
yeah, or Captain America, or one of those super fit guys doing that.
Biggest Loser.
No, yeah, but what's that show where they have to I can't remember the name of it. They do like
Ninja
parkour
Warrior?
And stuff like that. Ninja Warrior. There's
There
the
we
one.
go.
That's why I didn't make it all the way onto my notes.
I'd like to
Couldn't remember
see.
the name.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. You guys said that. For me, I was going Suicide Squad, just because
Mhm.
after watching Creature Commando, I want to rewatch Suicide Squad, the newer one, so good. But Suicide Squad do an amazing race, because if you could take any two pairs from that crazy group and then just say, okay, circle the globe, their shenanigans are going to ensue. That's going to be for sure, And so, yeah, like Harley Quinn and Croc out in the Alps trying to figure out how to get over the mountains. That would be hilarious. I'd totally be on board for that. That'd be great.
All right.
Oh, man.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're going to be talking about Creature Commandos later on, guys, but just spoiler ahead, I'm a huge fan of it. So. This episode is brought to you by our Patreon. Thank you so much for being a patron if you are. That every little bit of support helps us so much. You guys are literally paying for the servers for the entire network at this point, and we really appreciate it. We're also brought to you by Beauty's Biscuits, which are the local business selling amazing dog treats that you could either get them CBD or without CBD. They're calming for your pets. My pets are big fans of them right now. Use code GeekFreaks for 20% off. Again, supporting local business. I mean, that's the best kind of sponsor you can find. That's perfect. Let's start off with James Gunn. So he did an interview on a podcast. He really went, because his Creature Commandos he wrote and everything like that. It's the first start of the DCU. And one of the big things he brought up was the fact that his vision for the DC universe is not Marvel. It's not MCU, which everybody just assumed. It's actually Star Wars. Because he wants to build a wider world that every kind of movie possible can be made within it. And there is not one grand story like we have with the Infinity Stones. Instead, there's a big story going on that eventually will be Justice League. But meanwhile, Superman is fighting Brainiac over here, and Batman is fighting Joker over there. And they're just in this big, expansive world. And I think that's more comic book accurate than what Marvel does. Think of his comparison, just to throw this out before I get your opinion, is think of Star Wars. They're fighting the Empire. But meanwhile, on this side over here, we're seeing the Mandalorian doing his thing with Grogu, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And for multiple reasons. One of them is people are kind of getting this comic book fatigue, I think, with Marvel. There's just been so much content. They're just getting kind of tired of it a little bit. But we don't see that as much with the Star Wars world because their ability to be so diverse. Mm-hmm. Like Andor is a good example. It was such a good hit, and it's because it's what we want, where it's more in their world, but not the same content we've seen already. And so by not basing your show on your series or your whatever DCU specifically on superheroes, which would brand everything has to be based on this type of character. You build it on the world as a whole or the universe that you're making, and the characters can change drastically. We're seeing in Skeleton Crew is a good example where it's in the same world and it's a lot of fun, but it's a very different vibe than if you were to watch the Mandalorian or Ahsoka or something like that. This is more of like a kid adventure kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And hopefully it means that they're not competing head to head with the MCU, but they have very similar, content that the same audience wants to go see. And then, at the same time, they're probably not going to be fighting or competing too much with Star Wars, though they're more or less in the same lane. But it will be, a lot of the superhero type stuff. So it'll be the similar path, but maybe not the same kind of content.
I also think it puts a lot less stress on the company itself, because when you have something like the MCU's grand sagas, when something slips, like Phase 4, for example, which is coming right off of Endgame, it had the impossible job of following up Thanos. If it slips at all, like it did with Kang, holy shit, everything's upended, right? What do you do? Meanwhile, over on the DC side thing with this new plan, if something goes wrong, well, that's fine. It was just something that was going on with the Flash over here. It's done.
Yeah.
It's over there. We still have all the other things going on, and that's fine. And it's all within this world. And then that's how the comic books work too. Like you'll have these crisis events that are massive. Everybody tags in and helps out. But for the most part, they don't need each other until there's something that's really escalated happening to the planet.
Yeah, I feel like the MCU got lucky a little bit in the ability to lean on the multiverse to be able to fix some of their problems like that.
Yeah.
But pretty soon they're going to be consolidating that, and it's putting all their eggs in one basket again. And so when they have their stories, in line with each other, you can't trip up. You're going to derail your entire system, right? So they need a little bit of bandwidth where they can have multiple stories going at separate times. And if one falls off, it's not going to destroy their whole, system they built.
Another thing they got lucky with, and lucky is a tough word because it took a lot of work and it took a lot of vision and a lot of money, but they were the only game in town. So nobody was doing what MCU was doing. So when they were doing it, they were breaking walls every second. Yeah. And we were willing to forgive them for a lot of things. Now it's been 12 years at least. And we have seen this track record already repeat itself. So you have to find a new way to break the walls. And that's why I think DC's like, we're not going to bother trying to do that. We don't need to go down that path. We're going to do our own thing. And when you have somebody like James Gunn, who is leaning on comic book writers, leaning on community, I think he's poised to be very successful in a way that I didn't think was possible out of DC 4 years ago. When we were still trying to, God bless him, Henry Cavill, we were trying to make his Superman still and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like, it's just not taking off like they wanted it to.
Yeah. I think DC is going to have a long road ahead of them, but I'm glad they're not just trying to follow the same path as Marvel.
Yeah.
And hope for the same success that they had. Because, you can't, it's like capturing lightning in a bottle. It was,
great point.
Or making something go viral. It just has to happen. You can't force it. So hopefully their own path is just as successful or more.
What DC project are you looking forward to the most?
Well, that Green Lantern series, I think is I hope is really good. The whole like kind of buddy cop drama that's going to be grounded on Earth, but with aliens involved and stuff. That sounds good.
I like that because I think it's a second chance for Lanterns. And Ryan Reynolds, his Green Lantern movie flopped, and it flopped for good reasons. It was pretty awful. But Green Lantern, the character, deserves so much better than that. The idea deserves so much better than that. And it's one of those things where it's right on the cusp of mainstream. Like mainstream recognizes Green Lantern. They might not even remember his name. But for comic book fans, they know that he is a pinnacle member of the Justice League. He's right outside the trio, the Trinity. And he deserves a lot more props than he gets. And unfortunately, there has not been, like, Flash has got the Flash TV show that was fantastic. We got to see it at Fan Expo. But Green Lantern needs something like that. And personally, I think the thing I'm looking forward to the most is Superman, because I know that Superman is the character you hang the hat on. As long as you know Superman, you're fine with creating the rest of the DC. Even Batman could go off and on, like, I think Batman, while the most important character for DC overall, as in like generating money off of one character, I think Superman is the one that you have to hang the entire universe on, because he sets the stage for how bright will this look, where are the shadows, and yeah. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to most, and we're gonna have that coming next year, guys. It's gonna be a crazy year for comic book movies.
I hope they don't hang their hat completely on Superman though too, and that they kind of diversify, bring out some of the characters that we weren't super exposed to, like how Iron Man really led the MCU. well, we don't have to lead with Superman. He's great, and they have a lot of great content to work with. So definitely make Superman movies. But we might find some new character that we didn't recognize that is, their new cornerstone character.
I agree with that, but I think the best way to tell comic book fans and honestly, like the mainstream media, we have to kind of like the mainstream audience. I mean, Superman setting the tone with him first, successfully nailing Superman first is the best way to say we're in a new era. Because if you go out with Booster Gold or whatever, a B-list character, and it does well, okay, that's fine, but you haven't used one of the Trinity yet. And the king of the Trinity is definitely Superman. So I do think that that's how you set the tone. Like Creature Commandos is a great example of like, we have really good stuff coming up. Like, don't worry, Creature Commandos is amazing. But is it as important for DC as Superman? Negligible, I think. And I think that I think Superman's going to pop up in Creature Commandos, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I think he's the one you have to set the stage with myself.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, we're moving on to the Harry Potter series. Jonathan, have you heard much about this Harry Potter series?
Not really.
Okay, so they're starting to cast things. It's coming out in 2026. They're going to start filming in 2025. They're starting to cast, and the one that just came out today, which there's a lot kind of boiling over right now, but is Papa Asidu, which I watched how to say that name, and then when I heard when I finally heard, it's like, oh, it's Sea-Doo, like the boat thing.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm ready for the rest of the time that they're talking about the series now. Papa Sea-Doo is going to be playing Severus Snape. And what do you think about this casting, first of all?
We just got to see it. It's hard to, it's hard to really guess how well it's going to fit. I don't know. What else has he been in? I can't remember.
A lot of smaller things, frankly. Yeah, I'm looking for it right here. Sorry. I May Destroy You, and he's in a Black Mirror episode called Demon 79. He's mostly a stage actor.
Yeah.
Which, if we look at Rickman, who had the role beforehand, was very much like a thespian actor, that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of fitting for what Snape is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think when I put out the story, what I was worried about, let's be frank about this, is he's black and Snape is famously white. So I thought, oh boy, I'm going to put this out. And then my job for the next 2 days is to fend off comments. And I hate that that's part of it. That really is part of it when I'm putting out a TikTok or something like that. Man, I was so impressed by the geekdom. You guys have nailed it. Overwhelmingly, it's been like, oh, I love him in this. Or, oh, he's a great actor. And it was like,
that's good.
God, thank you guys. I'm so happy to hear that. And so it was really nice. It's like, just give him a shot. Like, who the hell cares? Because they have said we're trying to reimagine. We're trying to not just make we're not remaking the movie. We're readapting the books. And so it's not, we're trying to find somebody that looks like the characters you already know. We're trying to, pull new information from the books, essentially. So it's fine if they look different. As long as it's a good actor, that's all that matters. As long as they portray the character correctly.
Yeah. I think that's great too. Cause like, we don't want, remaking the movies would be, interesting or whatever, but really, the source material to make it as pure as you can, go back to the books and, reimagine that and make it, fun and interesting for the next generation. We've seen movies where they just straight up make another version, another copy of the movie, and it's not great. It doesn't do well. We've already seen that story. So I think that's great. Especially if he's an actor that's got experience in that kind of a character. I don't really know other movies he's played to pick out like, oh yeah, he played this guy who, conveys the same kind of lack of emotion or something like that. But obviously we'll see. I'm sure, it'll be good to have a totally different actor in that role.
Some of the other very early rumors have been, I'm looking for the names here, but we have, so he already okayed it, but what about for Voldemort? We have Cillian Murphy.
Oh yeah, he can do anything. Honestly, that'd be pretty cool. Because there's a movie too where he has like his head shaved and he's kind of crazy.
28 Days Later.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Which they just released the poster for 28 Years Later, and I was like, oh, I'm so ready for this.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
And again, these are all the Snape casting is all but confirmed. He actually was offered the role. Everything else has been rumored, so keep that in mind as we go forward. We're looking for for Dumbledore, we're looking at Michael Gambon, who he just played on Penguin. He plays Falcone on Penguin. The one with the glasses and stuff like that. He's got a really good personality where he can kind of like take up a room. That's great. Robbie Coltrane for Hagrid. He is from Ted Lasso. He is the grumpy one from Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're definitely pulling some big stars. I don't know if we really need this show yet. Like, I'm one of those guys that's like, oh, Harry Potter's perfect, though. Just watch Harry Potter. But it has been 23 years since the release of the first movie. So I guess it is right time. It's just for me, it's not, you know?
Yeah. And we watched it as kids. So it was a very different perspective. So it'd be interesting to see, do they pivot and make the show something that we're going to enjoy as adults? Maybe watching Harry Potter, you know, the old movies, maybe watching it now as an adult, it'll be good for us too. I haven't tried to watch them again. Yeah. But I'm wondering if it's going to be tailored for the next generation or us or both, and you know how that goes. Yeah. For the showrunner for this, they're going to be tapping two-time Emmy winner Francesca Gardenier. She did Succession and His Dark Material. So if you've done Succession, I'm on board with you immediately. That was such a good show. I don't know how that's going to translate to a good show, but His Dark Material is quite good. It's just that the story kind of fell apart, but the actual production was good. So they're going to be filming in 2025, and they're going to be returning to Warner Brothers Studio Leviston, which is where they filmed the actual movies. So they're going to be using some of the movie sets and stuff like that to film this, including the train station and Diagon Alley, which I know I said that wrong. Diagon Alley, thank you. Yeah, because it's diagonally. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Harry Potter series so far, based off of what we've heard so far from the production? Well, we know we have some of the same characters, but have they leaked anything about the plot at all? It's just the first book. They're redoing Harry Potter. Yeah, retelling the same story. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for it. Like you're saying, it's been a long time since we've seen those movies, and they were huge when they first came out. The books have been even bigger, which I think is a great, great thing for these movies moving forward. Yeah. If the books were just okay, but the movie was a big hit, then there was some kind of magic they captured in the movie, and you got to try to recreate. But since the books are so much more popular, I think, than the movies themselves, that means the fans like the source material a lot. So if you keep returning back to that to make something fresh, you can't go wrong. So yeah, I think it'll be good. And I like that they're doing it in a series. I know it's kind of weird that, we don't make as much movies now and everything goes into a series, but you have much more ability to tell a deeper story in a series versus a movie. You got to try to cram it into an hour and a half or 2 hour movie. Or break it up into multiple, in which case you're telling a part of a story and you got to still hurry up and finish that portion of it. But I think a series will be a lot better for the storytelling. You give a lot of context. I started reading the first book, getting ready for the series and stuff like that, because I like to pretend like I know shit. And I was like, wow, he's still with his aunt and uncle. Holy cow, how deep into this book am I? When in the movie it was like, boom, 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 welcome to Hogwarts. Yeah, it was like the first 10 minutes, right? Yeah, it feels like anyways. Right, but in the book, it was like, I mean, come on now, I get it. Yeah, he talks to snakes. I saw this for like a second on the screen. I'm fine. So, one of the things I think we got to do, John, I hate to, bring the room down a little bit, but we got to talk about, we're going to be talking about Harry Potter over the next 2 years with the series coming up. And J.K. Rowling and her opinions on trans rights has been, in my opinion, appalling. Yeah. And she's just been abusive online. And how do we justify watching Harry Potter and still recognizing that? Yeah, that's complicated, especially when she's choosing to be vocal about her, controversial opinions. Yeah. So there's a lot of things we can do. I mean, we could just straight up boycott anything she produces and say, especially if she's, openly or aggressively pushing her, vision or her opinion. If she was, holding an opinion and just not pushing it so hard, I guess, then I'd say that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And, we can't, if we try to look for art that is produced by somebody who's perfect, we would never see anything we like, because everybody's going to have slightly different opinions and things that we don't agree with. But this is kind of a big stance that she takes. So yeah, I would kind of leave it up to her. If she's, has her opinion, then it's fine. If she keeps it to herself, then we can enjoy, her work. But if she's going to be out there aggressively as an activist fighting against trans rights, then it's like, hey, that's not cool. And to show that we don't agree with that and we don't want other artists and celebrities to start fighting against people's rights, then we'd have to pull back and say, hey, sorry, we're not going to watch your movies or shows or read your books because you're obviously fighting for something we don't agree with.
So she is actively doing that.
Yeah.
She's actively donating and stuff like that. And the way you can be smart as a consumer is I try to negate it as much. For example, I said I was reading the Harry Potter book. I bought it secondhand, knowing that money's not going to go to her. So that was, hey, whatever, 25 cents or whatever the difference is. But when it comes to this show, the thing I'm going to lean in on, guys, because we're going to talk about Harry Potter. It's something you guys care about. It's something we care about. And it's a shame that when we talk about it, technically money's going to J.K. Rowling, somebody I dislike. But what I'm going to focus on is the fact that we're building community around Harry Potter. Whether or not she intended to or not, this is a safe haven for people who don't feel normal and feel like they're special, like Harry Potter was himself. And so I would like to focus on that. I'd like to focus on the community around Harry Potter, the people who see themselves in these characters and amplify them. And anytime we see her speak up or whatever, we point it out and we shun her for it. But also still like, hey, let's build this community over here. Luckily, you and me are big fans of Star Trek. Yeah. And Star Trek's this place that is quite opposite J.K. Rowling, where it's very inclusive. So we get lucky. But there are times when somebody like William Shatner, who is very old and has very old man opinions, he speaks up, but boy, our fandom shuts him down pretty hard. Like, hey, buddy, your existence is because of us. Sit in your seat, And I think that's kind of the way we'll have to handle this going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we use the opportunity that we're talking about Harry Potter to, whenever it comes up, talk about, equal rights
like
between people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I think that will help, offset whatever she's doing.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get that out there as we look forward to the next couple of years of talking about Harry Potter and enjoying the fandom and enjoying the community. Get this out there now. And when it comes up in the future, it'll come up in the future. And we have to be ready for that.
And remember, you don't always agree with somebody, but if you have an opinion and you want it to be heard, just make sure you speak up. Don't just say, oh, well, they're a celebrity. They must be right. I must be wrong. No. We all have our own. Yeah. We all have our own opinion.
Now let's talk about another opinion that you and me both disagree on. And that is the Snow White trailer. I watched this thing thinking this thing is awful. Really? And you had a different opinion.
Yeah. I thought, man, this looks really good. I'm actually kind of excited. I'm definitely going to have to go see it in theaters. And I wasn't a big Snow White fan of the original movie. I probably saw it when I was like 8 or something. I don't remember. I don't remember much of the plot. But then, seeing this, it's like, oh man, that looks really cool. As long as they're respectful with the dwarves and everything, because I know that's a big hot topic. But aside from that, it looks great. I want to go see it. What is it that you don't like about it?
Well, first off, this thing was supposed to come out like 3-4 years ago, and it was the dwarves that slowed things down because they kept remaking them, trying different things out. The dwarves look awful. They look so crappy. They're not even using mocap. They're just like full on 2001 CGI, in my opinion.
Well, how'd you want them to be? They were cartoon before.
I wanted them to be real people, I guess. But then again, I'm like, is that offensive? I don't know. Who the hell knows?
Is it better? Yeah, I don't know.
But I think it would have been better. I'm watching it again right now, and I'm like, man, they just look so stupid. And so I don't know. I just wish that it wasn't such terrible CGI. I think that's one thing.
They're supposed to be stupid though. I mean, their names are like Dopey and Sneezy, and you're expecting them to be normal people, but then you're completely changing it to a different story if they're not silly, goofy, falling over each other kind of characters.
I think one of the probably highlights that they're doing with this is making Snow White have a lot more agency in her own actions, and she's actively leading a kind of revolt against the evil queen. Yeah. That is something I think like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. First off, it makes Snow White a much more important character than just this kid that falls asleep in the forest and gets kissed. This is actually like kind of, I was telling you before, a little bit of a Joan of Arc vibe off of her. Yeah,
she's not passive in her own situation.
Exactly.
And Gal Gadot playing the evil queen is awesome.
She's good looking, that's for sure. I would root for the evil queen by the end of this thing.
Right. Yeah, I thought it looked good. It does look like it's a musical to the extent of most Disney movies we grew up with. So, of course, Frank's going to love it because he's a huge fan of musicals.
That clip did well. Talking about how much I just...
And as we analyze it, it's like, well, I really like this one and I like that one. And I grew up with Lion King and Aladdin and all this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, you love musicals. It's okay. Nobody's judging you for it.
I just thought I didn't like musicals, but then, yeah, I've been like singing Defying Gravity a lot lately.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, okay. Fuck it.
I had that stuck in my head back during Glee. Remember, it was on that long time ago. And I didn't think I was a big fan of Glee, but the songs would definitely get stuck in my head.
I remember when we watched Glee, we'd fast forward past the singing.
Oh, really?
Because we used to record it on DVR, and then we'd fast forward past the singing parts. And then the episode where the episode that I stopped watching was when they needed more people on the football team, so they just brought on like everybody from the Glee club. And as a football player in high school, I was like, they would be actually killed if they went onto the football field without any training in any way. Like there would be dead kids on the field. So this
is not flag football.
Yeah, I was done watching it after that, but yeah,
that's funny. Yeah.
Oh man. So when Snow White comes out, you're gonna have to be our reporter on the scene, man. You're gonna be going to the theaters to watch this thing.
What's great is, I don't know if my son will pay great attention to it, maybe by the time this comes out, but my wife would definitely like to watch this.
She's gonna go crazy for it.
It's hard to find good movies to bring the whole family to these days because we have different tastes. But yeah,
you guys are gonna go watch Moana too. Have you had a chance to watch that yet?
Yeah, I think we're gonna go today actually.
Oh, good.
This afternoon. Yeah.
You have to tell us how that goes. Last thing of the news. Riot Games has announced their Project K, which is going to be a TCG, trading card game based in their world, much like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh. What is it that we're missing from the TCG environment that we needed to add another one to it? This one's got a lot of money behind it, so I think it's going to be somewhat successful.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I'm not into the TCG, business anymore. We used to, play and collect different cards back in the day, but I haven't been involved with that in a long time. And I'm not sure how the industry is, what holds it up. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of hype about it. When we go to conventions, there's a lot of, people selling cards and usually tables to play and stuff like that. And we see that comic book stores are relying on tabletop card games to kind of keep their doors open a lot of times. But yeah, I don't even know. I don't know the state of the industry right now.
To me, I think one of the things that Riot Games can add to this that might be lacking in some places is a structured competitive scene. We see that Lorcana is finding success, not just in being beautiful, Disney art, but also they're focusing on the local comic book shops and creating small competitive environments within those shops. And then games like Pokemon and Magic, who've been around for a long time, have gigantic, sporting events and stuff like that. Riot Games, with their experience in esports and League of Legends and whatnot, I think can introduce a more structured format that might be more familiar to people and will right away give it an advantage. So you come in with your deck and you have, because I know right now, like, they're going to have different worlds and also different characters are going to lead the deck. So like, oh, this one's Jinx led or whatever. That's having a character lead it, kind of I think it's called Pathfinder or something like that for Magic. I think that's a really good way to kind of be like, oh, wow, he's using a Jinx deck. Oh, snap, this one's using a Garen deck. And like, I'm just kind of picturing the commentators on this, and I think that that's something that Riot can add to the industry.
I think one thing that would be kind of cool, and maybe it's just because I'm not into these card games much anymore, maybe this has already been done, but kind of a cross-platform thing where when you open a pack of, these Riot cards, League of Legends cards, and they have, maybe they'll have either a QR code you can scan inside or on certain cards or a code number you put in or whatever. So you can get like DLCs, from the card game. So maybe you get a super rare card that's holographic and it's a really cool character. Well, you can also play that character now in the game or get a skin that looks like him or something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
So World of Warcraft, back when it was first popping off and really getting big, they came out with a TCG game too that was quite beautiful, quite good.
Yeah.
And it had cards that would give you mounts and stuff like that. The Swift Spectral Tiger mount, which I currently own, which for a small group of you were like, oh shit. The rest of you are like, I don't know what that is. And it is a card that probably sells for about $2,000 right now.
Damn.
Yeah. And I bought it in game for maximum amount of gold you could own on a character before the maximum went up, which was nice. And it is full on bragging rights. Like I bust that mountain out and it's like, watch out, guys. I waste my time.
Watch out, I waste my time. That's pretty good.
Yeah. But that was it's a big deal to this day. Like, that card came out 20 years ago, you know, and it's still a big deal in that game. So I could definitely see that where like, hey, I'm going to bring out this, whatever. I keep saying Jinx because it's from Arcane, but she's from Arcane. But that would be really good when it's like a certain Jinx that says like, yeah, I'm also a badass in this world too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
All right, boss, you ready to talk about Skeleton Crew?
I am very ready for Skeleton Crew.
I'm loving the show so far. So this is exactly what we asked for. We already saw some of it in Andor. If you guys haven't watched any of these new Star Wars kind of, side stories, definitely watch them all. But we're following like this group of young kids. You've mentioned before, it's kind of got like that 80s vibe, that Goonies Goonies in space. In the first episode, like a band of kids ends up kind of forming, coming together, find this spaceship. It takes off on its own. With a android, a robot, or whatever kind of on board. They thought it was like a Jedi temple, so they're kind of investigating whatever. Anyways, they end up at a spaceport, and at the end, I don't remember actually where they're at. They're trying to find a way home.
They get thrown into a prison cell.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But it's just such a fun world. I love that they're building more in it. They did a really good job at setting the characters up. Like you're saying, Neil is everybody's favorite already.
I love that little elephant kid.
They did such a good job.
Give me that stuffed animal now.
Yeah, and I looked it up the other day. The kid that was playing that character was the main character on that Jack Black Santa movie I just saw.
Yeah.
Dear Santa or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was good in that too. So I was like, that's pretty cool to see. And I watched a clip where they were talking about the different ways they film, and they film him, doing his lines over, multiple ways, so they could use either him, they could use the motion capture or combination.
Yeah.
And
they even have another guy with like the full suit that they'll put in his place sometimes. They're like, hey, act out like what he just did. Yeah, I saw that as well.
So they do a lot of dynamic work to make it work and not put too much stress on the actor and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm loving this show so far. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's got a Steven Spielberg, Amblin vibe. Again, Goonies, The Explorers, The Last Starfighter. The story to me, Thomas brought up a good point. He said that, sometimes a complicated story is not needed to tell a good story. Because I think lately we've been kind of wanting these like complex stories like Acolyte. Yeah. Oh boy, the mystery. Who's
Game
this?
of Thrones type plots. Yeah.
Sometimes we just need some kids in space, hanging out, still in a car, driving around. We found out the codename for this, by the way, is Grammar. Shit, I forgot it. But it's based off of a Simpsons episode where Bart steals a car and they're hanging out with his friends while they're supposed to be at some sort of grammar thing. Grammar rodeo, that's it. And it was like, oh, perfect. That's exactly what's happening with this. It's grammar rodeo. What are your thoughts on the story of this so far? Like the vibes off the first two episodes?
Yeah, I mean, it seems a little, like you're saying, a little simple, but it reminds me more of like when we watch Star Trek and it's like a bottle episode versus, a big movie plot that's got to be super heavy and resolved, by the end of the movie. Because we see that in a lot of shows that we like, where it's just kind of, they've found a new planet. They need to find this one mineral that's on it. Oh crap, we got stuck on the planet. Now we got to find a way to, get back off, kind of thing. Well, yeah, you kind of got hurled across space. We're meeting interesting, cool new characters that we like. And, now they're going to try to find a way to get home, but it's going to be an adventure in the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's great so far.
I really like how earnest it is with its audience, because I think a great example is, spoiler alert, guys, for the first episodes. But at the end of that first episode, we see Jude Law's in a prison cell, and there's, the classic Pirates of the Caribbean keys on the outside that they're, need to grab. And for whatever reason, he hasn't done it before the kids were there, but he did it now. He used the Force to bring the keys to himself. Mm-hmm. And when I'm seeing the keys there and I see Jude Law step up, and I'm like, okay, so the easy answer is that he's a Jedi or whatever, and he's going to pull those keys over to him. But I'm like, they wouldn't do that. It's going to be something complicated. It's going to be a fake out, blah, 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 blah. That's the cynical version of me. But then the freaking keys go flying towards him, and in a very cheesy way, which is kind of nice. But I was like, wow, it's kind of nice just to have the thing happen and not just be like second guessing everything all the time. Like, it's not for you, it's for the kids. So that's fine that the Jedi does the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing too, is it does feel like it's a little bit more for kids without being without being like comical that it's so kiddish, it's so
or talking
childish,
down
something
to
like
them
that.
even, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not like,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And in that moment, it's like he could have, like you're saying, he could have pulled them ahead of time. He could have just used the force on the lock and not even need the keys themselves. There's a lot of ways he could have gotten out, but you wanted to demonstrate that he is a Jedi. So that was the main thing, is to show the kids so he could have them on his side or, be able to protect them, most likely.
Yeah. I was thinking the reason he probably didn't grab the keys is because he didn't have a starship to get off the place. And now with those kids there, he knows that they have a starship. Like, okay, so I have an escape plan. Now let's go. That's kind of what I was thinking.
And if he's a Jedi, true, like, from the roots Jedi, he probably knew he's at that place right now for a reason. So he needs to wait and be patient and see what the force put in there for, kind of thing.
Well, I assume he's the pirate in the beginning, the guy that like broke in and the vault was empty. That had a helmet on. I'm assuming that's him. So yeah, I think they imprisoned him because he screwed them over or whatever. But
yeah,
the characters I think are all a delight. All 4 kids are relatable in their own way. KB with that little like Borg implant and stuff like that. I root for KB.
Love that. Yeah.
I think KB is the heart of this show in a way. Like Neil, don't get me wrong, very cool kid and one I want to hang out with. But KB, I think, is gonna be the one that's I hate to always bring up Star Trek, but let's bring it up. They use the droid, they use the hologram to always show humanity. I think that's what KB is gonna be for.
Yeah, the kind of the neutral, like emotionally one that we can see through the lens of, right?
Yeah, that distances themselves from humanity and then looks at humanity and shows what we take for granted in humanity.
Yeah, I could see that. That'd be cool. How much did you like that droid too? That was like a pirate and he can box but I'm pretty sure he was being controlled by that little rat that was in his eye. So now they saved the mouse or rat.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that was pretty cool. So I hope they show that, the droid was just a vessel that got destroyed, but the little mouse was actually speaking into a microphone and controlling him with joysticks and all that stuff.
That's when it becomes too kiddish for me, if that's the case. But I could,
I mean, 100%. They saved the mouse. Why would they save him otherwise if he wasn't the brains behind the robot? But I mean, he can be a full-on pirate mouse. It was his accent that was speaking, and his boxing. Maybe he'd been on that ship for 100 years because he's a space mouse and can last a long time.
I'm pretty sure that mouse is still in Neil's pocket when the robot comes and helps them.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because they took it. Because when the robot, the robot dies, then they grabbed him. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So
and when the robot was thinking, the mouse jumps out of his eye and scurries away, like he's gonna go look in a book real quick or something like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, away from the keyboard. He's AFK. The robot's still in thinking mode.
That would be wild. If that's it, John, I'll make sure this is a clip and we share it, because then you broke the story.
Yeah.
I want to share 2 fun things about that robot. First off, it's voiced by Nick Frost, who I love from Shaun of the Dead and everything like that. Yeah. Secondly, I didn't realize this before, and I was all excited when I found out about it. If you didn't know this was Pirates before, you know it now. His name is SM-33. Write that out. That's Smee from Captain Hook. I was giddy when I found about that. That's so freaking cool.
Yeah. That was like the first thing I'm trying to figure out. I was like, what does SM-33 stand for? And then it's like, oh yeah, Smee. That makes sense.
And then the way he's like blocking with those shields and like it's cooking it up and then he burns the guy. I'm like, that's
he's
great.
Done this before. Yeah, he's experienced.
And he has the cord still hanging off. I'm a big fan of that droid. That's a good droid.
Now, you think they're gonna bring the droid back? Because it was left on that.
Yeah. You don't make a character that cool and don't bring him back.
That's true. He was left there, but they stayed there. They were about to get on the ship and bail out. But so they'll have to find him in a box apart somewhere. Yeah. Put it back together.
They'll boot him up or something like that for sure.
Yeah. That's cool.
And I think one of the other characters I'm pretty excited about is the dad, because I think what's going on is that planet, Atlan, something mysterious going on, right? They all think it's gone. All the pirates think it's gone. It's not a real place. It's fiction. The kids are from there. They have Old Republic credits. So, I think that the droids that are on that planet are far more advanced than the droids we see in the normal Star Wars universe. So I think they're imprisoned on that planet. They don't know about it. And it's maybe like a cult, like imprisoning. And remember how you have to take your test so you can figure out what job you're going to have. That feels like a dystopian future, not like a Star Wars future. And so I think we see kind of from the previews that like the dad's starting to realize that, we're being watched all the time. So there's going to be something where like the planet is actually bad too. And the dad on his efforts to try to get to his kid is going to realize like, there's something beyond the barrier. There's stars and stuff like that.
And then that brings the question of like, what's the difference between a dystopian future and a utopian future? I think part of it is like free will, of course, and unlimited resources or limited scarce resources. So it seems like they have unlimited resources, but it doesn't seem like they have free will. It seems like they have the illusion of free will, which has played well for them so far. But now, like the dad's starting to see these little hints that's like, oh yeah, if we wanted to leave, could we? Are we actually safe or free on this planet?
Yeah.
So maybe they'll crack that egg open.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they develop that out. What are your thoughts on the visuals that we've seen so far? Because there are CGI, and I think sometimes the CGI when used is left wanting, but the practical effects are that cheesy, charming mix that we got from the old Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and from the 80s and stuff like that, where, like, I go back to Jude Law making those keys float. You can almost see that fishing line. It's that,
Yeah, but then I can't imagine a thing being moved by the Force slowly that didn't look the same way.
Right.
It's always that kind of like, yeah, it's floating. I mean, there's not a lot of ways you can make. I guess if you were to try to make it look a little more realistic, it's in its floating, it would be rotating slightly, like you're defying gravity in a ball. So it's in a Avatar. It's in a ball of air that's moving, kind of thing. But yeah, I haven't seen anything that causes concern to me. I think it's all been really good. It's been Disney quality, Disney quality standards,
and I find it very charming, honestly. Like the kind of low tech practical effects, the wolf head on that one alien that's like that. Yeah. We know we can do that better, but also I like that. I don't know, something about that. It just kind of is, refreshing.
Yeah.
But that is pretty good.
Great.
So overall score so far, Jonathan. We're only on the first 2 episodes. We're going to revisit this when the show ends. What's your overall score so far for Skeleton Crew?
Already, I'd say it's like a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave it a 7 because I was like, it's good, but there's a lot of things. But you know what?
Such a hater.
Well, since I gave it that 7, I'm moving it up to an 8. Okay. So my first reaction was 7. After rewatch and stuff like that, I'm going up to an 8, and I'm really here for the fun.
Oh, I do have one complaint that I want to go off on a tangent with.
Yeah.
The droids. We see this in almost everything, and I almost wanted to do a separate top 5 on droids again, just to debate about this, but I'll make it brief. Why is it people create droids that can't communicate with humans? So I think there's 2 reasons this could come, but it doesn't make sense in the way that we see them. Is because all droids should be able to speak, at least like C-3PO, where it's pre-recorded audio clips that they play, and we have Siri and stuff like that. Technology will evolve. If it's created by humans, it should be evolved to interact with them. So that's one option, is that a lot of droids are made from some transformer-like planet where they don't speak English and they beep and boop like R2-D2. So that's their form of communication. They don't need to communicate with humans. And then the second would be like, it's created somewhere else that doesn't speak our language, and the droids have to learn to adapt. So they use their robotic sounds or voices to create human language, but it's not programmed in them. So that would make sense why droids have these weird robotic kind of sounds. Like even Wall-E and Eva don't speak English. They, make robot sounds to try to replicate the language. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that they wouldn't be pre-programmed with full vocabulary like any AI is today.
Well, in the world of language in Star Wars, it's very interesting because for some reason, all these different planets, even the ones that are just being discovered, all speak English or common.
Yeah. And Star Trek that's explained with the universal translators is great. It's just a little, it's built into our badges. So everyone we run into, we can communicate with 99.9% of the time.
Yeah. But for Star Wars, I don't know what that is. And like Atlan hasn't been seen in whatever. But for some reason, it just lands on a pirate port. They're all like, oh, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah. So there's got to be something there. And then, why don't because C-3PO's job is to be the communicator. His job is to know the languages. So it's like, why are you needed, buddy?
Yeah. It must have been created by different species or something like that. But
yeah. I'm sure there's some book out of the thousands of Star Wars books that explains it perfectly. And I just don't know it, honestly.
Yeah. There's some movie or show that I've watched, I can't remember, that explained why humanoids exist. And it's like, well, in the core fibers of the universe, the beginning genetic sequence that makes everything, one of the earliest ones of, the first 10 or whatever, is the blueprint to like a humanoid. So no matter how you mix it, if they end up being mixed with lizards and mixed with this and that, whatever, the core, 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, mouth, all that comes out to be the same in almost all forms of life. So that in that show or movie, all the different planets, it might even be Star Trek, I don't remember, but all these different planets that have humanoid life, it's like, oh, it's because it's one of the earliest, genetic codes that was shared between all these different planets in the forming of the galaxies or whatever of the universe. But yeah, that would maybe you could use that same argument to explain that inevitably with enough time, all these races would eventually develop the same language based on the genetic similarities that they have. But that would, these races would have to exist for millions of years without destroying themselves to reach that type of language. And then their technology would be probably far more advanced than pirates.
So I asked our overlords, ChatGPT, and this is what it said. First off, function and design. So astrometric droids like R2D2, they're mechanical, technical task only droids. So they're not meant to actually talk to humans. So they speak in binary because it's the most efficient way to communicate. Yeah. Between
you would control them with a tablet or something like that, probably.
The tablet, it would be the protocol droids like C-3PO, which are meant to be the bridge between technical robots and humans, or whatever. Also, the Galactic Basic Standard, which is English, isn't universal. Some droids are programmed outside of that, so there is a barrier there. Like the Hut-controlled ones all speak Huttese over Basic. There are technological restraints. Some of the droids, like the Gonk droids, don't speak English because that part is too expensive, and so that's why they wouldn't speak Basic. And then the last reason is because of plot storytelling, because it's funner to have something beep. Like, oh, that one's fair.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, thank you, ChatGPT.
I didn't think about that as a limit that, well, we need to keep the droid, cheaper to make or lighter weight or, less energy consumption based on their technology, that we don't want to add the extra processor or whatever to speak the language if this one doesn't need to interact with people.
Yeah.
R2D2 could just be...
You're building a PC right now. You don't need some things. That's one thing you're going through.
I'll start cutting stuff out and throwing it away.
I don't need you to speak English. I need you to play video games.
Right. Do we need it to communicate with the screen or the monitor?
Right. Let's move to Creature Commandos, Jonathan. And this is the kickoff of the DCU. And James Gunn wrote this. You can feel James Gunn's humor in it. Real quick, broad strokes of it. Basically, Suicide Squad's outlined after the events of Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, both of which you need to watch, Jonathan. I'll add it to the list. We need to have a big whiteboard behind you. And so, the Suicide Squad's outlawed. So Amanda Waller, being the charming, wonderful woman that she is, says, oh, that's fine. We'll use non-humans. And she gets Rick Flag Sr. Rick Flag Jr. unfortunately died in Suicide Squad. Spoiler alert. It says, hey, here we go. Here's a group of suckers to take with you. You got to go to this one place and do your thing. And so we have, the Bride, which is the Bride of Frankenstein. We have the Weasel, which we saw in Suicide Squad, and a bunch of other people like that. And they go to this place and the adventure ensues. I am getting strong Archer vibes, some Venture Brothers, like world building, very much Archer and like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen vibes out of this. I had a blast with it. My score, and I don't do this often, guys. So I got to tell you right now, I don't do this often. I gave it a 10 out of 10.
What the?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was laughing. I was loving it. I was surprised by the story. Dr. Frankenstein, you freak. I was very, very happy with this. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I think I only saw the first episode so far, but
wait till you learn about Dr. Frankenstein.
He was at the very end. It shows him. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I like that it can be, like you're saying, it's like Venture Brothers and Archer. It can be for adults without having to be too edgy or vulgar or something like that. There is a scene where the girl's trying to hit on Rick Flag, Senior. She strips naked for him and stuff like that. Okay, that's not terrible, but it's kind of show that at least I could watch with my wife and she's not going to be like, oh my God, what's going on? It's not offensive in that way. And there's a lot of, fun cartoons and shows and stuff like that just are too bad to watch with the family. But yeah, it's got a fun story. I like the dynamics of the characters and stuff like that as we learn them. So yeah, I think it's gonna do good. I
didn't expect it to be so witty, so funny, but there were a lot of little one lines that were great, were hilarious. Yeah. Alan Tudyk as I can't remember his name, but the skeleton guy.
Yeah,
he's dropping lines left and right. Like, oh my God,
such a great actor
talent,
too.
Man.
Love that guy.
Easy. David Harbour's playing Frankenstein in this. who is the sheriff from Stranger Things. And James Gunn in an interview was talking about how like he basically changed Frankenstein because of David Harbour coming in. And it was like, oh no, I'm gonna make you are a character I'm keeping around. So,
right. Isn't that such a cool like actor that like, oh, this guy's so good. I definitely want to make sure, you know, the character fits him versus he, you know, changes himself to fit the character. That's cool.
Yeah. It's a very fun, it's a beautiful show. They go ahead and they embrace color. Again, speaking of like the skeleton, bright green, and then you got the bride with her like red clothes on. We live in a golden era of animation. I mean, with X-Men 97 and Invincible and all these different shows just hitting it out of the park. Superman, My Friend Superman. Yeah, so many really good shows. I have this as a strong 10. I can't think of anything wrong with it. Oh, the music. Holy cow, the music. It's like this Eastern Europe, because they're in Eastern Europe kind of kingdom place, a modern kingdom place. And so like randomly when they're doing a fight song, you'll have like some polka thing. And I'm like, James Gunn. This reminds me of why I listen to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack to this day. Because he has a way of finding this like weird music to fit perfectly that you would like never guess out of a crowd. It's a very, very good talent of his, a side talent of all things. Any other thoughts you got on this?
I like that it is animated. They could have easily spent the money and put all the work into trying to make this live action. And I just don't think it would be as good because we want these characters to have this kind of whimsical range and like the radiating guy, like you can't show that without it being morbid in real life, but it's fun and, you know, understandable as a cartoon, as an animated show. So I just hope the wider audience, the mainstream audience gives it a chance. Cause I know animated shows are a little harder to get people to watch, being that they think they're for kids or something. Yeah. But I think if people give it a shot that like, you know, other DC stuff or the MCU, I think that they'll definitely like it.
Yeah. So you only watched the first episode. What is your score based off that first episode?
I think I'd go at least a 9. Yeah. I don't know. I did 9 for Skeleton Crew. Maybe I'm just easy win over.
And I'm not. I try not to be. And I could not. After watching this, I was like, all right, I feel like a 10 out of 10, which to me, and we've had this debate in the past, guys. Listen to old episodes. To me, I feel like 10 out of 10 is there's nothing I would change. And other people in our podcast network disagree with me. They say that it's like near perfect is still 10 out of 10. I say that means there's nothing I would change. And frankly, there is nothing I would change about this. I really feel like it's exactly written as I would like. I'm an adult animation fan. And so it really is kind of tailored for me. Yeah, I am really looking forward to that next episode.
Nice.
Lastly, I want to touch on Marvel Rivals. We're not going to do a full review for that. We're working on that because it just released. And of course, the video game takes more time to consume. But we are working on the review for that. It's in progress right now. Early reactions. If you like Overwatch, if you like Marvel, there's absolutely no reason you wouldn't like this. It is straight up a clone of Overwatch in every way. Some likable characters. I'm trying to be good at Doctor Strange. He's a tank. I'm not. Iron Man's a lot of fun. There's a lot of really good characters so far. I'm trying to play in them all. Jeff the Shark. All the clips I'm seeing for Jeff the Shark, the land shark, is pretty impressive. Squeaks wrote a nice piece on our website. Check it out, guys, about the 5 things that Marvel Rivals has to do to be successful. And so I'm kind of using that as my benchmark, and we'll have him come on to review this next week. He's working this week. And we'll have him reflect back on his article to kind of see, okay, what'd you think? Did it hit these? And have you had a chance to play this yet?
No, not at all. I'm waiting for my computer upgrades. My computer probably can't handle it right now.
Yeah, you know what? It is just like Overwatch, but you never know with that computer. Your computer's.
I just open a web browser and all of a sudden things slow down. Yeah, you hear the fans kick on again. Like whoa.
It's ready to clock out. So check that out, guys. Join us. Let us know who your main is, and then next week we'll do a full review for that. Squeaks also just wrote the article. I have to edit it and publish it, but about what does Indiana Jones need to do, and like Indiana Jones games throughout history and stuff like that, because that game is also coming out this week, and we'll review that as well. It'll be on the Xbox.
So I do have a question with Marvel Rivals. Do you see anything different from Overwatch? I know the characters are a little bit different. They probably overlaid, like a different skin, the setting for the most part. But in the gameplay, do you see, obviously a lot of it's similar, but is there anything they changed that kind of makes an impact on the game too? 2
big things that are improvements over Overwatch. First off, you can destroy the environment. So if you hit a wall enough times, the wall will come down.
I love that.
Yeah. Secondly, certain characters team up well with each other. So me and Squeaks, we notoriously like to play 2 tanks. And so if you have certain characters, Jeff the Land Shark, which is this like shark that's on the ground, he could jump on the back of Groot and become like a water cannon for Groot. So the two players are working in tandem to create a like super character essentially. And so you'd have to like specifically pick like, hey, I'll play Groot if you play Jeff, and that way we could team up and be this water cannon character. And that is a really neat aspect of kind of, you know, cheesing it a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be hard. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't play well with others, so maybe that's why. But like you have to coordinate, like, oh, let's run around to this area, whatever, and do that one move together. But maybe that would help build like camaraderie between your team.
When you have an established friend you're playing with, it's going to work well. I have not seen that in game yet. I have not seen a lot of team based moves yet in game. Right now, most people are playing it exactly like Overwatch.
Just learning the characters and stuff. Since it's so new.
There's so many characters. They came out the gate with 33 characters, so there's a lot of characters to learn.
Dang.
Yes.
Okay. That's cool.
And I mean, from Wolverine to Spider-Man, I'm seeing everybody play Spider-Man. Hulk. Yeah, there's some really great characters, but the variety with which they pulled from is nice. And I'm a sucker for skins. I haven't bought any, but I like how they're like, oh, you like Iron Man? Here's the Iron Man skin. Here's the Iron Man from Endgame skin. Here's the Iron Man from this certain comic book skin. Like they're really pulling from all these different categories that I think is a really good business model, especially for somebody like me and for definitely like Squeaks. I think Squeaks is going to have the whole set here real soon. So, yeah, that's cool. Review coming very soon on that, guys, and we'll make sure you guys know. We're getting people's opinions online too, so join us on Threads and whatnot to participate. All right, let's begin wrapping things up on this episode. Network news. So we have a new lore master coming out this week. We're going to dive into 3 more characters from Azeroth. That first episode. Thank you very much for listening to that, by the way, guys, because like in Scanovia or whatever, it's the #1 podcast. I'm like, holy cow, that's amazing. Scanovia is not a country. Sarkovia? No, that's from Marvel. I don't know. It's one of those countries. Thank you very much. We have the finale, the 2-part finale for Outlast Podcast season 12 is going on this week. That reaction. So join us for Outlast Podcast.
The last episode was so intense. I loved it.
I was so mad with it, but it's like you got to give props where the props are due.
Yeah. By your reaction, I was expecting Teeny was going to get voted out, so that she didn't. I was like, oh, okay, that's even a more surprise. But yeah, I love that they were able to, upturn the game.
I just don't like Andy, and the fact that Andy's playing so well now, it's like, yeah.
And the edit is leaning towards Andy, maybe for a big fall at the end, but it may be for victorious success and big change. I don't know.
I don't want to win. So yeah, check that out, guys. Challenge accepted. Our next movie is Addams Family Values, and then we also have a reaction for Skeleton Crew. If you want a bigger deep dive into Skeleton Crew, go over there. And what else do we have? Fandom Portals. Aaron, who hurt he broke a bone during football. He's now firing back up and getting things going for Fandom Portals. And Tyler and all the crew are still in hiatus as he's got a brand new baby, so that's so great. But he's taking a break right now as expected. I think that's everybody. I'm trying to remember everybody else in the network, but I think that's pretty much everybody. Jonathan, what is your recommendation for the week?
So recently I've mentioned Matlock. It's on Paramount Plus. Good show. If you like that, if you watch that based on my recommendation, which I know our entire audience follows what I say, Man on the Inside is on Netflix.
Holy cow, people love that one.
Yeah. And I think it's the same people that did The Good Place, which was good. Wasn't amazing. It was good, fun show.
Also Parks and Rec. Also did Parks and Rec, yeah.
Yeah, it has Ted Danson. Ted Danson?
Ted Danson.
Danson, yeah, okay. I don't know. Anyways, it's very much like the other one, like Matlock. Fun and just has an older guy infiltrating a situation and trying to get intel and stuff like that. And it's a good story. So if you guys liked Matlock, I think you'd like that a lot too.
Yeah, that's a good shout out. I'm gonna give one for Brandon Sanderson's new book, Wind and Truth. If you are familiar with Brandon Sanderson at all, this is no recommendation for you. You already have the book in hand and you're reading it. I am very new to the world. I was beginning to read Mistborn, but with all the hype out of Wind and Truth and me watching just people go crazy about it right now, everybody's buying the book. Came out yesterday. I was like, all right, it's time I join this Stormlight arc. What is it? I forget what it's called. Anyways, I bought the first book. It's on its way. And it's over 1,000 pages for the first book. And that's one of 5 books. And this new one has 1,300 pages. And I'm like, okay, this is about to be my life for the next couple of years.
Does it have a QR code on the inside for an audiobook so you just listen to it?
I was debating about doing the audiobook thing, which the new book they said is 63 hours long, audiobook wise. So I might still do that, but I'm like, okay, I can't stand not being part of this wonderful world. And people are saying like Brandon Sanderson, which I Mistborn is very good, but it's also one of his earlier books. They're saying that like, yeah, he could be the next George R. R. Martin, Gerald Tolkien of this generation. I'm like, okay, that's pretty good high praise.
Yeah, good to get in on the ground floor.
It's just a matter of time before they start making HBO series about this stuff like that. And I love good fantasy. It's just that it takes so much time, and I'm not a very fast reader, so I have to really kind of like, okay, shut off the outside world, focus on this book, and then get into it. And then I'm a super fan. Game of Thrones example. So, Wind and Truth out now, guys. Check that out. He has his own convention, like Dragon Con or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and where other fantasy writers bring out their books and they talk about what's coming up. It's just, he's a really cool writer. Follow him on TikTok, guys. That alone will get you wanting to join his world. Pretty neat.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Again, we have the pet pantry in the description if you want to donate to the Elk Grove Animal Shelter and help them support their animals. That would be really great. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.